Aliens invaded a backwards world, didn't know it was a forge world. If you are not a heretic, then declare your city of origin. Leave a comment, a like, and subscribe to the Emperor's Glory. At the conclusion, rate this tale from 0 to 10. The Emperor protects. The Cytherian scout ship drifted silently through the outer asteroid field, its bioluminescent hull pulsing with nervous energy. Captain Zithkar flexed his forearms, each ending in delicate manipulator claws, as he studied the primitive world below through compound eyes that could perceive 17 different spectrums of light. "Analysis confirms it, Captain," chirped Navigator Vestai, her crystalline feathers ruffling with excitement. "Electromagnetic signatures suggest pre-warp civilization, crude fossil fuel combustion, basic radio transmissions, no orbital defense networks." Zithkar's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. The Cytherian Confederation had been searching for worlds like this for cycles, rich in resources, populated by species too primitive to resist, perfect for the expansion protocol. His insectoid features hardened as he remembered the burning refugee ships fleeing the Devourer fleet. The great swarm had consumed 3 entire sectors, leaving behind nothing but sterile rock. His people needed new homes, new allies, new resources. "Initiating deep scan protocols," announced Engineer Thex Du from the sensor alcove, his 6 legs working frantically across holographic interfaces. "Surface analysis show..." Curious. The planet exhibits signs of extensive industrial development, but the technology signatures are strange. "Strange how?" Zithkar demanded. "The power readings don't match any known fusion or antimatter patterns. It's almost like they're using controlled nuclear reactions, but the energy output is far too high for such primitive methods, and there are vast underground complexes that our scanners cannot penetrate." Vestes' feathers darkened with concern. "Captain, perhaps we should observe longer before making contact. The Intelligence Division's protocols clearly state the Devourers consumed Cytheria Prime yesterday." Zithkar snapped, his voice carrying the harmonics of command that made lesser Cytherians reflexively bow. "Every hour we delay is another hour for that cursed swarm to find us here. We need allies, we need resources, and we need them now." The comm system suddenly crackled to life with an energy signature that made their sensors scream. A harsh, guttural voice filled the bridge, speaking in heavily accented Gothic. "Unknown vessel, this is Forge World Metallica Defense Station Gamma 7. You have entered restricted Imperial space. State your purpose or be destroyed." The Cytherian crew exchanged confused glances. Thexdu's sensors were going wild. "Captain, I'm detecting massive energy spikes from the planet's surface. Whatever just spoke to us, it's backed by weapons. That shouldn't exist on a pre-warp world." "Impossible," Zithkar muttered. "Their electromagnetic emissions clearly indicate..." The transmission continued. "This is your final warning, Xenos. Respond or face the Emperor's wrath." Vestai activated the Universal Translator Matrix, her voice taking on the formal tones of Confederation diplomacy. "Greetings, inhabitants of this world. We are the Cytherian Confederation, seeking peaceful contact with your species. We come bearing gifts of knowledge and requesting sanctuary from a great threat that pursues us." Silence stretched for several heartbeats. Then, "Xenos requesting sanctuary? Report this to the Magos immediately. All defense batteries, target acquired. Prepare for cleansing protocols." Zithkar's compound eyes widened as his sensors detected massive energy buildings across the planet's surface. "Thex Du, what exactly are those power signatures?" They're plasma generators, Captain. But the scale is..." "Impossible. Each one outputs more energy than our entire battle fleet." A new voice crackled over the comm, mechanical and cold. "I am Magos Dominus Cowl Beta 7. You have entered the domain of the Omnissiah. Your presence has been noted and evaluated. You speak of pursuit by a great threat. Elaborate." Vestai looked to her captain, who nodded grimly. "We are refugees, fleeing from what we call the Devourers, a massive biomechanical swarm that consumes all organic matter in its path. They have destroyed 3 sectors of our space, consuming billions of lives. We seek only shelter and alliance against this common threat." The mechanical voice processed this for several seconds. "Biomechanical swarm consuming organic matter. Probability assessment, Tyrannid genus. Threat level, severe. Stand by for teleportarium transport. Any aggressive action will result in immediate termination. Teleportarium? Thexdo squeaked. Captain, they're talking about matter. Transportation technology. That's impossible for a pre-warp civilization. Before Zithkar could respond, the ship's hull began to vibrate with harmonics that shouldn't exist. Golden light filled the bridge, and suddenly they were elsewhere. They stood now in a vast cathedral-like chamber, filled with machinery that hummed with barely contained power. Servo skulls drifted overhead like mechanical cherubs, their red optical sensors tracking every movement. The air tasted of incense, machine oil and ozone. Before them stood a figure that defied classification, mostly human in basic structure, but enhanced with mechanical augmentations that pulsed with their own internal light. One arm ended in a multi-jointed manipulator array, while optical mechadendrites writhed like metal serpents from the back of his skull. A red hood covered features that were more machine than flesh. I am Magos Dominus Caul Beta 7, servant of the Omnicia, keeper of the sacred mysteries of the machine cult, the figure intoned, his voice a blend of organic vocal cords and vox synthesizers. You speak of tyrannids. We have faced such threats before. The hive fleets learned to fear imperial steel. Zithkar tried to process what he was seeing. This was supposed to be a primitive world, barely able to achieve spaceflight. Yet here they stood in a chamber that defied physics, speaking with a being that appeared to be part machine, part organic matter. Honored Magos, Vesti ventured, her feathers pale with shock. Your technology is far more advanced than our initial scans suggested. How is this possible? Caul Beta 7's optical sensors focused on her with mechanical precision. Your scans detected only what we permitted. Forge World Metallica has stood for 10 millennia, producing war machines for the Emperor's eternal crusade. We are children of the Omnicia, blessed with knowledge that transcends mere organic understanding. Thexdo couldn't help himself. But the electromagnetic patterns we detected clearly indicated primitive industrial development. Coal burning, crude electricity, basic metallurgy. A sound that might have been laughter emerged from the Magos' vox grill. What you detected were the exhaust signatures of our foundries working at minimum capacity. We produce more refined materials in a single day than your entire civilization has processed in its history. Alarms suddenly began blaring throughout the cathedral. Servo skulls scattered like disturbed birds while massive cogitator banks came to life with streams of data. Caul Beta 7's mechadendrites twitched with barely contained energy. Auger readings confirmed Tyrannid bioships entering system outer perimeter. Estimated time to planetary approach, 4 Terran hours. They have followed your trail, Xenos. The Catherian crew felt their hope die in their thoraxes. Zithkar's voice cracked with despair. We're sorry. We never meant to. Bring this death to your world. We can try to lead them away, but our ship isn't fast enough. Negative, Caul Beta 7 interrupted. Tactical assessment indicates optimal opportunity for xenocide operations. Forge World Metallica has not faced a proper Tyrannid incursion in 3 centuries. The Omnicia provides tests to prove our worthiness. Vesti's feathers stood on end with shock. You want to fight them? Do you understand what they are? They consume everything organic, adapt to every weapon, learn from every defeat. They are death incarnate. The Magos turned his augmented gaze upon her, and for a moment she glimpsed something in those mechanical optics that chilled her to the bone. Not fear, anticipation. Let them come, he intoned, raising his blessed plasma rifle. For the Emperor, for the Omnicia, and for the glory of Mars. It has been too long since we had proper targets for our blessed war machines. As if summoned by his words, the sound of massive machinery echoed through the Forge Cathedral. Somewhere in the depths of the planet, weapons beyond imagination were awakening. The Catherian refugees huddled together as the first human defenders they had ever met, prepared for a war that should have been impossible to win. Captain Vexara pressed her clawed hands against the command console, watching the tactical display with growing dread. Red markers swarmed across the hologram like a plague, each representing another wave of Skari bioships closing in on their position. Status report, she growled, her feline features taut with concentration. Perimeter defenses at 30%, reported Lieutenant Cass, his canine ears flattened against his skull. The pack hunters took heavy losses in Sector 7. Commander Rowe's bovine heavy units are holding the manufacturing district, but they're requesting immediate reinforcement. Vexara's tail lashed with frustration. 3 cycles ago, her coalition fleet had detected what appeared to be a primitive human settlement on this backwater world. The inhabitants seemed to possess only basic industrial technology: metalworking, simple power generation, crude vehicles, perfect for exploitation by the Skari swarm, which is exactly why they'd come to defend it. Now she wondered if they'd made a terrible mistake. "Captain," called Zephyr, her avian communications officer, "I'm receiving another transmission from the human settlement. They're still refusing evacuation." "What do you mean, refusing?" Vexara's whiskers twitched in confusion. "Don't they understand their planet is under siege by a devourer swarm?" Before Zephyr could respond, the communications array crackled to life with a distinctly human voice, gruff, mechanical, and utterly unconcerned. "This is Forge Master Cadus of Metallica Prime. We acknowledge your assistance, but evacuation is neither requested nor required. The Omnissiah protects." Vexara stared at the speaker in bewilderment. Through the viewports, she could see the sprawling industrial complex below, massive foundries belching smoke, assembly lines churning out equipment, and thousands of red-robed figures moving with mechanical precision between the structures. "Forge Master," she replied, struggling to keep her voice level, "perhaps you don't understand the severity of the situation. The Skari consume all biological matter. They've devoured 17 systems in this sector alone." There was a long pause, filled only by the sound of distant machinery and what might have been chanting. "We understand perfectly, Xenos. We have received word from the Adeptus Astartes that battle brothers of the Iron Hands are en route. Until their arrival, Metallica Prime will endure. The flesh is weak, but the machine is eternal." Lieutenant Cass's ears perked up. "Did he just say Iron Hands?" "Captain, those are the humans' warrior caste we encountered reports about, the ones with the E-modifications." Vexara's blood chilled. She'd read the classified files from the Tau Earth caste's first contact protocols. Space Marines were described as genetically enhanced human warriors of exceptional capability and fanatical devotion. The reports had seemed exaggerated at the time. "Incoming Skari bioships on attack vector," announced sensor operator Thale, his massive ursine frame hunched over his instruments. "Estimate: 47,000 individual organisms." Through the communications channel came an odd sound, like metal grinding against metal, but rhythmic. It took Vexara several moments to realize it was laughter. 47,000. The Omnissiah is generous today. Brothers, begin the canticle of destruction. Today we test the new plasma cannon configurations. Below on the planet's surface, the industrial complex suddenly came alive with activity that defied all tactical logic. Instead of seeking shelter or preparing defensive positions, the red-robed humans began moving heavy equipment into the open. Massive weapons platforms rolled out of hidden bays, their designs unlike anything in Vexara's tactical databases. "What are they doing?" she whispered. Her answer came as the first Skari bioships entered the planet's atmosphere. The sky lit up with brilliant blue-white energy as dozens of plasma cannons opened fire simultaneously. The lead bioships simply vanished, reduced to constituent atoms in seconds. But that wasn't what made Vexara's fur stand on end. It was the sound coming through the communications channel. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of human voices raised in perfect unison, chanting in their ancient tongue while operating weapons that should have been impossible to construct with their apparent technology level. "Blessed be the machine, for it serves the Emperor. Blessed be the plasma, for it purges the unclean. Blessed be the forge, for it arms the faithful." The chanting grew louder as more weapons came online. Artillery pieces that looked like they'd been cobbled together from scrap metal and prayers began launching shells that exploded with the force of fusion bombs. Anti-aircraft batteries tracked targets with impossible precision, their operators moving in mechanical synchronization. Lieutenant Cass was staring at his tactical screen in disbelief. "Captain, those plasma cannons, they're operating at 97% efficiency. Our best energy weapons barely reach 80%. How is that possible with their technology base?" Vexara demanded. "Unknown, ma'am, but there's something else. I'm detecting massive underground facilities. This isn't just a settlement, it's a full-scale manufacturing complex. They're producing military-grade equipment on an industrial scale. On the surface, the humans had begun deploying something that made Vexara question everything she thought she knew about their species. Towering mechanical constructs strode out of the foundries, bipedal war machines 30 meters tall, bristling with weapons and moving with surprising grace. "Are those robots?" asked Zephyr, her voice barely a whisper. "Negative," came Forge Master Cadus's voice over the channel, apparently having heard their transmissions. "Sacred machines, blessed by the Omnissiah and operated by those who have proven themselves worthy. Behold the Titans of Metallica Prime." The Titan war machines opened fire on the descending Skari swarm with weapons that turned night into day, volcanic lances that could melt through starship armor, carved through bioships like they were made of paper. Gatling blasters spat streams of shells that created walls of explosive death in the sky. But what truly unsettled Vexara was watching the human operators. Through her ship's telescopic sensors, she could see them working their controls with religious fervor, some crying out in apparent ecstasy as their weapons found their marks. They weren't just fighting, they were worshipping through violence. "Captain," Thaler reported, his voice shaking slightly, "the Skari are adapting their bioforms for the plasma fire. New organisms incoming. They appear to have developed heat-resistant carapaces." Vexara expected this development to concern the humans. Instead, the mechanical laughter returned to the communications channel. "Adaptation detected. Blessed be the Omnissiah for providing new challenges. Brothers, initiate Modification Protocol 7. Deploy the melter weapons." What happened next defied the laws of metallurgy as Vexara understood them. The humans began rapidly reconfiguring their weapons in real time, switching from plasma to what appeared to be fusion-based energy beams that could melt through virtually anything. The speed of the modifications suggested they had somehow anticipated this exact adaptation. How did they know the Skari would develop heat resistance? Cass wondered aloud. "Because the machine spirits whisper the enemy's weaknesses to those faithful enough to listen," came Cadus's response. "The Omnissiah provides all knowledge to those who serve without question." The battle raged for 3 hours, and in that time Vexara watched 47,000 Skari organisms reduced to ash and scrap metal by what she had initially dismissed as primitive humans. But more disturbing than their combat effectiveness was their absolute conviction that they would win. There was no fear in their communications, no doubt, no consideration of retreat or alternative strategies, only unwavering faith in their Omnissiah and their machinery. When the last bioship fell burning from the sky, Vexara expected celebration. Instead, the humans immediately began examining their weapons for any signs of wear and chanting prayers of maintenance over their machines. "Forge Master," she called down to the surface, "your warriors fought admirably. We owe you our gratitude." "Warriors?" The mechanical laughter returned. "Xenos, those were our tech adepts and servitors. Our warriors have not yet arrived." A cold dread settled in Vexara's stomach. Then who was operating those titans? Acolytes and apprentices mostly. The princeps are currently in prayer communion with their machine spirits, preparing for the real battle. The real battle? Indeed. Our astropaths report a full Skari hive fleet approaching this system, approximately 50 million organisms, including biotitans and hive ships. They will arrive in 6 solar hours. Vexara felt her legs go weak. 50 million Skari would overwhelm any defense, no matter how fanatical. Even the combined might of the coalition fleet would barely scratch such a force. "Forge Master, with respect, 50 million Skari cannot be defeated. We must evacuate immediately." The response came not from Cadus, but from a new voice, deeper, resonating with absolute authority and something that might have been contempt. "This is Captain Vorth of the Iron Hands Third Company. We have just translated into system with battle barge Ferrum Dolor and supporting vessels. Evacuation is not an option. This forge world serves the Imperium, and the Imperium does not abandon its own." Through the viewports, Vexara could see new contacts appearing on long-range sensors. Massive vessels of distinctly human design, their hulls bristling with weapon batteries and bearing the scars of countless battles. But what made her blood freeze was the realization that these ships were already opening fire on targets beyond her sensor range. "How are they engaging at that distance?" Thaley whispered. Captain Vorth's voice carried a note of grim satisfaction. "We have been hunting this hive fleet for 3 systems. They thought to escape us by fleeing to an undefended Forge world. They were mistaken. Today the iron of Metallica Prime will be quenched in Xenos blood." As if summoned by his words, the communications channel filled with a new sound, the synchronized chanting of hundreds of superhuman voices, raised in hymns of war and mechanical devotion, and underneath it all, the steady, rhythmic pounding that Vexara suddenly realized was the sound of armored boots marching in perfect unison. The Iron Hands had arrived, and the real war was about to begin. The Kethva watched in growing horror as the humans prepared what they called a blessed charge. High Magos Corvan 7 knelt before his massive chainsword, oil streaming from his optical sensors as he chanted in binary. The sound was hauntingly beautiful and absolutely terrifying. "Machine spirits, grant us strength. The Omnissiah guides our path through darkness." His voice crackled through Vox speakers, harmonizing with the growling engines of approaching Lehman Russ tanks. Commander Ashara's fur stood on end. "This is madness. The Shard Singers have dug into those ruins for cycles. Their quantum barriers are impenetrable." Captain Meridian looked up from loading his bolt pistol, each round the size of Ashara's thumb. "Impenetrable?" He laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Sister, we've been breaking impenetrable things for 10,000 years. The human vehicles were unlike anything in Kethvar tactical manuals. Tracks, as wide as tree trunks, cannon barrels blessed with purity seals, and hull-mounted speakers blaring hymns that made the air vibrate. Corvan 7's servo skulls circled overhead like mechanical vultures, scanning for weaknesses. "Beginning preliminary bombardment," announced Tank Commander Voss through the comm, "for the Emperor and the Machine God." What followed wasn't warfare as the Kethvar understood it. It was industrial-scale destruction wrapped in religious fervor. The Lehman Russ, tanks fired in perfect synchronization, their battle cannon rounds punching through quantum barriers like they were paper. Each impact was accompanied by chanted prayers from the tank crews. "Blessed be the shell that flies true. Sacred be the powder that burns bright." The Shard Singers' crystalline fortifications, which had withstood Kethvar plasma artillery for months, crumbled under the sustained bombardment. But it wasn't just the firepower that unsettled Ashara. It was the humans' absolute conviction that their weapons would work, because they believed they would work. Corvan 7 rose to his full height, servo arms whirring. Quantum barriers neutralized, beginning blessed advance. All units, prepare for glorious communion with the machine spirits. The Adeptus Mechanicus forces moved forward like a tide of red robes and gleaming metal. Their chanted prayers grew louder, creating an almost hypnotic rhythm that seemed to synchronize with the rumbling tracks. And whirring servos. Ashara found herself unconsciously matching the cadence. "Stay close to the humans," she ordered her warriors. "Whatever madness drives them, it works." The first Shard Singer emerged from the ruins, a crystalline horror twice the height of a man, its body refracting light into weapon-grade laser beams. It should have cut down the advancing tech priests instantly. Instead, Corvan 7 simply raised his staff, and the last beams bent around him like water around a stone. "The Omnissiah protects," he intoned, continuing his advance without breaking stride. More Shard Singers poured from the ruins, their quantum frequency screams designed to shatter neural pathways. The sound had crippled entire Kethvar battalions in seconds. The humans didn't even slow down, they began chanting louder. "From the weakness of the flesh, Machine God, deliver us. From the lies of the anti-machine, Circuit, preserve us." The screams had no effect. Worse, the servo skulls began broadcasting the hymns at frequencies that disrupted the Shard Singers' crystalline matrices. The alien constructs began to resonate, their perfect forms developing stress fractures. "Impossible," Ashara whispered. "How do they resist quantum neural disruption?" Tech Adept Zara 9 heard her, multiple mechadendrite arms still working on battlefield repairs even while advancing. "Neural disruption requires organic neural pathways," she explained in her synthesized voice. "We have replaced weakness with blessed steel and sacred silicon." A massive Shard Singer, clearly a commander variant, materialized directly in front of Corvin 7. Its form was beautiful and terrible, a geometric perfection that hurt to look at directly. Coherent light poured from every faceted surface, each beam capable of molecular dissociation. Corvin 7 didn't dodge. He raised his chainsword and walked directly into the laser barrage. The beam struck his conversion field and scattered into harmless rainbow patterns. His voice boomed across the battlefield through vox amplifiers. "I am the will of the Omnisire made manifest. Your false perfection is but an echo of the machine's true glory." The chainsword's teeth bit into crystalline flesh with a sound like breaking stars. Sacred oils splattered across the creature's faceted surface, and where they touched, the quantum matrix began to collapse. The Shard Singer's death scream shattered windows in the ruins behind it. But more were coming, too many more. The quantum disruption frequency intensified, and even the tech priest's augmented forms began to show strain. Servo skulls fell from the sky like metal rain. Several Cataphron destroyers stumbled, their targeting systems overwhelmed. "Fall back to defensive positions," Ashara ordered her forces. "The frequency is too intense." The humans didn't fall back. If anything, they advanced faster. "Purge the unclean!" Captain Meridian's voice cut through the chaos as he led a squad of battle sisters into the heart of the Shard Singer formation. "Let flame cleanse their corruption!" The Sisters of Battle emerged from cover like avenging angels, bolt rifles spitting death and promethium flames painting the air orange. Their power armor was scarred from previous battles, covered in purity seals and sacred text, and completely resistant to quantum effects. Sister Superior Cassandra dual-wielded bolt pistols, each shot preceded by a whispered prayer. "Emperor, guide my aim. Let this shell find its mark in your name." Every shot found its target with mechanical precision. The HFY warriors watched in amazement as the humans coordinated their assault with inhuman efficiency. The tech priests provided covering fire, while battle sisters closed to flame range. Tank commanders adjusted their targeting based on binary cant transmitted by servo skulls. It was like watching the components of a vast machine, working in perfect harmony. "How do they coordinate so perfectly?" asked Warrior Prime Thekvar, Ashara's second in command. "Our best tactical networks can't achieve this level of synchronization." "They don't coordinate," Ashara realized with growing awe. "They commune. Look at their eyes. They're not following orders, they're following faith. They all believe in the same truth so completely that they move as one organism." The tide of battle was turning, but the cost was horrific. Alayman Russ took a direct hit from a Shard Singer's quantum lance, its hull breached and crew compartment exposed. But instead of evacuating, the surviving crewman manually loaded the battle cannon and fired one final shot before the vehicle exploded. "For the Emperor and the machine!" His voice was barely audible over the destruction, but every human on the battlefield heard it and repeated it like a prayer. The quantum disruption reached a crescendo that should have liquefied organic brains and fried electronic systems alike. Instead, the human advance accelerated. Their hymns rose in pitch and volume until the very air seemed to thrum with religious fervor. And then Ashara saw something that changed her understanding of humanity forever. High Magos Corvin 7, his conversion field finally overwhelmed, took a direct hit from 3 Shard Singers simultaneously. The quantum lance punched through his torso, leaving a smoking hole where his primary power core should be. He didn't fall. He didn't even slow down. "The flesh is weak," he declared, his voice somehow growing stronger even as fluids leaked from his damaged systems. "But the machine is eternal." His remaining servo arms reached into his chest cavity and began rerouting power conduits around the damage in real time. Backup systems came online with hymnal chimes. His optical sensors blazed brighter than ever as he raised his chainsword for another charge. "That's not possible," Thekvar whispered. "His primary systems are destroyed. How is he still functioning?" "Faith," Ashara said simply. "Pure, absolute faith made manifest." The battle was reaching its climax when something even worse emerged from the depths of the ruins. The quantum signature was off the charts, a Shard Singer prime, a creature of living mathematics and crystallized physics. Its mere presence began to warp reality around it, turning solid metal into geometric impossibilities. The human advance faltered for the first time. Even their faith-powered technology couldn't function in the reality distortion field surrounding the creature. Servo skulls simply ceased to exist when they flew too close. Bolt shells became abstract mathematical concepts before they could strike their target. Now we see the limits of human madness, Thekvar said grimly. Some barriers cannot be broken by faith alone. That's when Captain Meridian began to laugh. It started as a low chuckle and built into full-throated joy that somehow carried over the chaos of battle. He drew his chainsword and activated its power field, the weapon blazing with sacred energy. "Brothers and sisters," he called out, his voice carrying impossible distances. "Do you see that beautiful abomination before us? Do you witness how it offends the machine spirit of reality itself?" The response came as a thunderous roar from every human throat. "We see it, brother Captain." "Then let us show it the true power of the Omnissiah. Charge." What happened next would be recorded in Kethvar histories as the moment they truly understood what humanity was capable of. The human forces didn't retreat from the reality distortion field. They charged directly into it, their hymns rising to a crescendo that seemed to stabilize the warped space around them through sheer conviction. The Shardsinger Prime raised appendages that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously, preparing to erase the advancing humans from the mathematical foundations of reality itself. And the humans kept coming, their faith burning so bright it cast shadows in impossible directions. The Vorthkar warship Eternity's Edge shuddered as another volley from the massive Imperial vessel tore through its shields. Captain Zekhai watched his tactical display with growing dread as more human ships emerged from the warp, dozens of them, all bearing the crimson skull insignia of the Adeptus Mechanicus. "Impossible," his navigation officer Veltar whispered, her crystalline feathers dimming with fear. The planetary scans showed primitive technology, steam engines, basic metallurgy. How do they possess void-capable vessels? Zekhai's keen avian eyes focused on the lead human ship as it launched boarding torpedoes. "We underestimated them as we did the world below. Contact the High Command. Tell them—" An explosion rocked the bridge as something punched through the hull. The air filled with the acrid smell of burning metal and ozone. Through the breach came figures in red robes, their faces hidden beneath mechanical masks, mechadendrites writhing like serpents as they advanced. "By the great nest," Veltar breathed. "What are they?" The lead figure stepped forward, his voice a mechanical rasp that somehow conveyed absolute authority. "I am Magos Dominus Carax of Forge World Metallica. You have violated the sacred grounds of the Omnissiah. Surrender your vessel, or be purged." Zekhai drew his plasma weapon, its blue glow reflecting off his black beak. "You deceived us. Your world showed no advanced technology." "Deception?" Carax tilted his head, servo skulls floating around him like metallic birds. "We concealed nothing. You simply lacked the wisdom to perceive the machine god's gifts." One of his tech priests stepped forward, holding a device that looked suspiciously like scrap metal welded together. As he chanted in binary cant, the device began to glow with inner fire. "The sacred plasma coils awakened to the Omnissiah's will." Veltar's translator struggled with the human speech patterns. "Captain, they're speaking to their machines as if they were alive." "Because they are," Carax replied, his optical sensors focusing on her. "Every gear, every circuit, every blessed component contains a fragment of the machine god's consciousness. We do not simply use technology, we commune with it." The boarding action continued throughout the Vorthkar fleet. On the command ship Stellar Dominion, Admiral Kefris found himself facing a different kind of human. This one wore Baroque power armor decorated with purity seals and bore the double-headed eagle of the Imperium. "I am Captain Thaddeus Vork of the Angels Exemplar," the Space Marine announced, his bolter tracking across the bridge crew. "You have attacked an Imperial world. Explain yourselves." Kefris spread his forearms wide, his grey skin flushing with patterns of submission. "We thought your world was primitive. Our scouts reported steam technology, basic industry. We came seeking resources, not war." "Primitive?" Vork's helmet tilted. "Metallica has forged weapons for the Emperor's armies for 10,000 years. Every primitive steam engine you observed was blessed by the Omnissiah. Every forge a sacred temple. On the planet below, the tide of battle had completely reversed. Where once the Vorthkar dropships had landed expecting easy conquest, they now faced the full might of an awakened Forge world. Skitarii legions marched in perfect synchronization, their galvanic rifles spitting death as tech priests blessed their weapons between volleys. Fabricator General Keth 901 observed the rout from his command spire, his multitude of mechanical eyes tracking dozens of separate engagements. The Xenos had been formidable opponents when they believed they faced primitives, but knowledge of their true enemy's nature had shattered their morale. "Status report, Magos Joule," he commanded. His subordinate's reply came in a burst of binary code that translated to satisfaction. "The enemy forces are in full retreat, Fabricator General. Our Warhound Titans have broken their center, while the Skitarii pincers have enveloped their flanks. Estimated Xenos casualties, 93%. Through the tactical display, Keth 901 watched a magnificent sight unfold. A warlord Titan, Ferrum, Vindictor, strode across the battlefield like an angry god. Its massive frame, seeming from a distance to be crude and primitive, revealed its true nature as Xenos forces scattered before it. Every rivet, every plate, every weapon system was a masterwork of sacred technology forged over millennia. Above them, the void battle reached its climax. Magos Dominus Carax stood on the bridge of the now captured Eternity's Edge, studying the alien technology with professional interest. The Vorthkar crew watched nervously as his servo arms probed their control systems. "Fascinating," he mused. "Your neural interface technology shows promise, though it lacks proper religious protocols. We shall study it for the glory of the Omnissiah." Captain Zekhai, now restrained by mechadendrite tendrils, fixed his avian gaze on the tech priest. "You've won this battle, but our empire will return. We number in the billions across 100 worlds." "Billions?" Carax's optical sensors flickered with what might have been amusement. "Child Xenos, the Imperium of Man spans 1,000,000 worlds. Our Forge worlds alone could drown your empire in blessed steel and sacred fire." He gestured toward the viewing port where the Adeptus Mechanicus fleet had assembled. Each ship, despite appearing to alien eyes as a crude assemblage of metal plates and weapon batteries, represented centuries of accumulated knowledge and devotion. "Behold the truth you failed to perceive. That primitive world below, it has forged weapons that have slain demon princes and Xenos tyrants, those crude steam engines. They power manufactorums that produce blessed ammunition by the billion. You saw rust and decay where you should have seen sacred patina and honored age." On the bridge of another captured vessel, Veltar found herself in conversation with a different sort of human entirely. Commissar Valdek of the 23rd Metallican PDF wore the black uniform of the Officio Prefectus, his bolt pistol held casually but ready. "You seem more reasonable than the others," she ventured, her translator carefully modulating the emotional undertones. Valdek smiled grimly. "I'm just human, Xenos, not blessed with the machine god's gifts like our tech priest allies, but I've served on Metallica for 30 years. I've seen what faith and dedication can accomplish." He gestured toward the main display where Skitarii were herding captured Vorthkar into processing areas. "Your people made a fundamental error. You judged us by your own standards, assuming that primitive appearance meant primitive capability. But we Imperials have learned that appearances deceive." "How so?" "That ancient-looking laser gun a guardsman carries? It might be 10,000 years old, blessed by 100 priests, its machine spirit awakened through centuries of faithful service. It will outlast your quantum plasma rifles and never jam at the moment of need." Veltar's feathers ruffled as she processed this. "Your technology, it's not primitive, it's traditional. Now you begin to understand. The Omnissiah's gifts are not measured by newness or complexity, but by faith and function. A simple steam engine that serves the Imperium for 1,000 years is more blessed than the most advanced computer that fails after a decade." The final phase of the battle played out in the deep void between planets. The Vorthkar had sent their reserve fleet to rescue their trapped forces, but found themselves facing something unprecedented. Forge ship Metallicus emerged from the warp, its massive bulk seeming to violate physics itself. Admiral Kepharis, now aboard a rescue vessel, stared at the human ship in growing horror. "It's impossible. Nothing that large should be spaceworthy. The structural stresses alone—" His science officer, a spider-like being named Trakis, chittered in confusion. Admiral, I'm reading massive gravitational anomalies. It's as if the ship is held together by belief. They were witnessing something beyond their comprehension, a vessel whose very existence depended on the faith of its crew and the blessed rituals of the Mechanicus. Forge Ship Metallicus wasn't just a ship. It was a cathedral, a temple, and a weapons platform combined into one impossible structure. From its vast hangar bays came swarms of fighters that looked like flying scrap heaps, but moved with deadly precision. Each pilot was a servo skull guided by the machine spirit of a fallen tech adept, their devotion allowing them to perform maneuvers that should have been impossible. The battle was over in minutes. The remaining Vorthkar fleet, faced with technology that defied their understanding of physics, surrendered rather than face annihilation. In the aftermath, as prisoner processing began, the true scope of Vorthkar miscalculation became clear. They had invaded not just any Imperial world, but one of the most sacred forge worlds of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Their intelligence failure hadn't just cost them a battle, it had led them to commit what the Imperium considered the gravest heresy. Fabricator General Keth 90A1 received the final reports with mechanical satisfaction. The alien technology would be studied, blessed components would be incorporated into Imperial designs, and the Xenos themselves would serve as test subjects for new weapon systems. But perhaps most importantly, the lesson would be recorded in the Forge World's vast databanks, a reminder that the Omnissiah's gifts were not always visible to alien eyes, and that the faithful must never underestimate the power of blessed machinery, no matter how humble its appearance. The Vorthkar Empire would remember this day as the beginning of their downfall. They had chosen their enemy poorly, mistaking sacred tradition for primitive weakness. The Imperium of Man, and its forge worlds in particular, would ensure they never made such a mistake again. In the grim darkness of the far future, there was only war, and the machine god's faithful would always be ready to wage it.
Angels fall.